Not quite 9 o'clock, so let's,
Very controversial.
we're gonna wait a few more minutes.
They're trying to see what's gonna happen with Shattuck Middle School. Are you familiar?
No.
Oh, it's gonna be crazy. I had something.
I assume that's where it was driving.
Oh, is that Merrill? Yeah, that's obviously the signs. That's, we're having issues with Shattuck Middle School, which is right in a residential area.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing, but the building is 100.
Two glass doors.
Built with asbestos. So they built it, they bought it. They're one of these.
I missed that because I always watch. to see the building going on there and stuff.
No, I could.
And I missed that.
Get up my house yesterday, somebody handed it from the whole neighborhood.
It's 530 feet.
Please don't do this.
The building I have.
They can't do single family homes in there. They can't get it up to make money.
Somebody built it.
Well, I don't know, but
Okay.
You could have built the building.
Yeah, it was-
See, I'm not sure. It's only-
it is pretty high. We were going to do our, just our shower.
It's their building, because we build it.
We're ripping everything else. And we were
I
gonna
had
buy all
the
the supplies. They were just coming in, kind of rebuilding it. It'd be nice. $15,000 just to do that. Not even like supplies. Not even a double. We are too, but we were gonna redo the others.
I got a drywall, insulated drywall. I gotta get heated.
Being that it's 9 o'clock, Friday, November 4th, I'm calling the Personnel Finance Committee to order. We'll get on with the public comments. Restricted to anybody that wants to either call in or that is here that wants to make comment. A limit of 2 minutes a person. Anybody wish to make a comment? Anybody here wish to make a comment? For the third time, anybody here wish to make a comment? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, we'll close public comment. We have two approval of minutes, approval of two different minutes now, and remember where you were in each one of these. Don said to, take the first one was Thursday, October 6th. And who would like to make that?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from Thursday, October 6th to 2022.
Okay. And second.
Second.
Want to take a vote? That's on the 6th. That would have been. We want to take a vote on accepting the minutes, or is there some discussion we want on the minutes?
I'll move to approval.
We've got a second on that, Dave. So we're taking a vote.
Hi.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. That's abstain. And we got 4. Oh. Abstention. Second set of minutes was October 18th at 5:30.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, and a vote.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. 4-0. Okay, our first line item of business is the approval of a purchase of the Harrison Street property 2831 and Harrison Street in Oshkosh, and we have Mr. Topo and Mike Felder to speak on that. We can get them up here.
I mean, everybody, I think, heard the presentation last month, of why we need the building. We need a shelter care facility. Every county has to have one under contract for one. We can't contract with our neighbors. In fact, Allegheny just told me today that they'd love to have a couple beds because they're having trouble right now. So that's the nature of it, is that we all kind of help each other out. So we need a shelter care facility. We're fortunate that, the vendor that we had is, getting out of the business and is also willing to sell us a building that's ready to go. It's completely furnished. It's owned correctly. It's licensed to us. We're operating it right now. We got it appraised. I negotiated with LSF. We got the price down, from the appraised value from 850 down to 700,000. Mike Elder, and facilities reviewed this. He can speak for himself, but there are upgrades to the property. The property is actually ready to be, is used today. So it's not that it's not able to be used. It is being used today, successfully. There will be some upgrades that will need to happen over the course of probably the next couple of years. And that's what the 300,000 is for. We would appreciate your consideration and also the county board to do this, because we don't really have another alternative. That's my piece.
Well, we've looked at it, and we've identified some repairs that we have to do immediately. And it would be contained within the $300,000, and we would go ahead and, if we purchase this building, we would put that on top of the list to get those repairs done as soon as we could.
The three big repairs
Are this, we need to add some sprinklers, we need to add, handicap ramp, and we need to fix the roof and siding.
and then later on, probably a resurfacing of the parking lot.
Right.
And
And if we want to do the garage,
maybe could be. But we don't have to do them all. Right.
Somebody wants your attention.
Well, he put his hand up first, and I wanted to go second.
Okay, go ahead. Wait a minute, we didn't. Oh.
I move. I move.
Second,
Okay. Don, go ahead. We got a second.
So sounds like the timeline is tight, especially with Appleton running all the space.
Yes, and LSS, when we started discussing it, they want to have a decision from us by the end of the year, because they want to know what they need to do with, what they need to do with also. For a while.
I'd just like to say, we've heard all about this. It's a no-brainer to me. I'm excited about it, and
You want to vote for it?
I want to vote for it. I'm just ready. Let's just do it.
Well, just
Comments.
let everybody, go ahead.
I'll just say I rode by and actually looked at the facility. Have you rode by and looked at it?
Mhm.
You would live in it? You got, there's a train track right in front of your front door.
What options do you have?
Well, we could build a new one out by the 16-bed crisis center like we did with the last one, probably for about the same amount of money, because we're only talking 8 beds. And that's,
So a
could
year
be
later?
16, but there's no elevator in there, so we can't use the upstairs unless we put an elevator in there. That garage, the train goes about 7 feet from the garage. I think I could just about reach out and touch the train. And then on the side yard, there's a tavern that people are going to be basically slamming their doors, talking in the parking lot. And then across the street, there's Louis Construction. I can live with the building. I can't live with the location. I would not live there, and I can't, if I wouldn't live there, I couldn't expect somebody else to live there. So that's just my opinion.
Can I address a couple of things?
Go ahead.
We were concerned about the train track. We put up a 6-foot-high fence. It is also has shrubbery along that fence. We had 2 meetings there. The trains went by while the meetings were happening. It was fairly quiet. Actually, I was surprised at how quiet it was as the trains went past. There's a 6-foot fence because we knew we needed to have a barrier. There is a complete barrier along that entire span of the property. On the other side with the bar, there's very large, I don't know the type of shrubbery it is, probably cedar hedges. And these cedar hedges are like literally 20 feet high and spread out. So you don't see the property next door. These kids are supervised, all the time. Yes, could they go outside? And yes, Could they go to the train track? Yes, but they're gonna run into a 6-foot high fence before they ever get there. And hopefully my staff are on it as soon as we're alerted that they're on the building. Yes, it is a concern, but it isn't as you presented. It's not 7 feet from the garage. It's literally 20 feet or 30 from that. There has to be a span in between. So, I mean, do we take all those things? This has been running for 10 years. We've had kids there. We've never had a kid unintentionally or intentionally run into the railroad track.
Or go to the tavern.
Or go to the tavern.
It's an existing place that we've already used, that's why I don't.
Have you been there, Becky?
Yes, I've drove by it, so I'm trying to say that and they've been using it for the last 10 years, and this is all ready to go.
And lastly, we wouldn't be able to build for 700,000.
No.
I think Mike would say even in that facility,
Probably
probably around $1 million.
And it would take how long?
2
For that
years,
then?
probably 2 years
Exactly.
from start to finish to get done.
So, yeah, there's no alternative.
Let's keep you were done with your comments. It was coming from Mr. Bender here.
And my other comment would be, yes, like Mike said, it would cost around $1 million, but this is $1 million with the renovations. And you still have a 100-year-old building. You still need an elevator to use the upstairs. We're gonna heat the upstairs, cool the upstairs, and we can't use the upstairs because it's not in compliance.
So the facilities committee talked about adding a chair lift, not an elevator. You don't need an elevator. You can put in a chair lift on the stairs and get.
If the stairway is wide enough,
It is.
meet the ADA
It's 6
compliance.
feet wide. 6 foot wide stair.
You know, and I worked on these 100-year-old buildings, the wiring on them is poor. You know, they're more prone for fires. It's like, I think that building will never, in the private sector, sell for $700,000 in the location it's in. We're overpaying for it. Yes, we could talk to them and see if they rent it to us for another year. We can build it right next to the 16-bed crisis center, a brand new facility for the same amount of money or a little more. And now you have something for 30 years, we don't have to maintain it. It's pretty much got a new roof, a new foundation. You got a 100-year-old block foundation on that building. In good conscience, I came here today, I didn't want to talk against it. I just wanted to have a nice, quiet, easy meeting. And after the budget, I had enough discussion to last me till the next. But in good conscience, I would not live there. There's no way that I would buy that for a rental house, because I wouldn't expect anybody else to live there. I live by the railroad tracks. It takes a long time to get used to sleeping when you hear basically a train going by, and there, all the trains go by there, 2 or 3 an hour, you know? And then you got the Leach Company that's got basically either 2 or 3 shifts. You got 150 cars coming out of there at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're coming in, 3 o'clock, they're coming out. Then you got the other shift coming in, and then they're going out. It's not a good location for what we need it for, and I would just as soon see us build something new that's gonna last as long. I'll be 100% behind you to build a crisis center like this out by the 16-bed crisis center, and I think we'll have an asset to Winnebago County. I think we're doing a disservice to the people that need this facility and to our taxpayers to buy something in that location next to a railroad track. That's just my opinion.
Board Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was also out there and viewed this because I am on facilities, and I thought the same thing that Supervisor Bender thought. Because when you first get out, you hear all this noise and that, because the train was going by. When we did go into the building, you didn't hear it nowhere as near as bad. And the facility has thought about going ahead and possibly looking into a lift here. So you could possibly, but you gotta remember, it's only an 8-bed place right now. It can be 16 because they can have double occupancy, so it can go up to 16 right there. If they go upstairs, they can have more, but they are using the upstairs. They're using it for offices. People can go up there and visit family or whatever. So the upstairs is being used. It's not like it isn't being used. I understand where Mr. Bender is coming from. I would like to have all new buildings in Winnebago County too, and we wouldn't have to do that study that Mike's gonna have to do now with his consultants and this and that. But it's there, it's being used. You know, sometime we've got to decide and make a difference. If we can't go in a place else with these kids, where are we gonna go? You've got to realize that if they do find another place, even if they got to go as far as Madison, wherever that child has to go to school, you'll have to go get them, bring them to the school district that they're coming from, take them back, and all this and that. So it isn't just where it should be right now. So I think that, it should stay right within that area right there. Thank you.
I could just clarify, the living space is an addition. So what Mr. Bender's talking about is the center part of the facility is the oldest part. But in the, I think it was the 1980s, Mike, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
can't speak for sure,
I
but
think
yeah,
it was
probably
like- I
about
think
the
it said about the 1980s, they completely built all around the original structure, and those are where the living facilities are right now. So they're not 100-year-old living facilities, they're, from the 1980s. And it's all, kind of like a crawl space and updated, and everything in the facility has been updated as far as the, heating, cooling, electrical, that sort of stuff. So it's, I mean, it sounds awful when you say it's a 100-year-old building, but just for clarification, parts of it are that old, but the main part where people are living and sleeping is from the 1980s. Just for clarification.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Right now, we're having an issue with Parkview and needing to reinstall heater boilers, right? Mike?
water heaters, yeah.
Water heaters. The age on a lot of the stuff in that facility is back in the 80s or older.
Actually, the furnaces are newer.
They just
And the
replaced
water
those
heaters are
in the
newer.
last 10 years. Both of them have been replaced since we worked with them. Brand
Do
new.
you foresee that as not having a problem in maintenance? For how long?
You're asking me to predict something that is hard to predict. I just replaced a water heater that was 10 years old. So, equipment fails when equipment wants to fail.
Yeah.
So I don't foresee anything in the next couple years, but if you're saying nothing for 10 years, I can't say that. Because it just depends on the quality of the equipment that you buy and how long it's been used, and if it was built on a Monday or a Friday or a Wednesday. So, I've got a crystal ball, but it only goes out for like a year or two. And
That's
Um,
nice.
that's the best I can do. We've got water heaters at Parkview that we're replacing. We've got chillers at Nina that we're replacing. Equipment just fails.
Dave?
I think Mr. Bender brings up a lot of good points, but I think that wheelchair lift is a definite thing that they have to have. I have family members that had a wheelchair lift and they're used it and it worked out very well. But I could also visualize the kids. using it.
Yeah. Fine. That's it.
May I speak? So I think that we have to look at the people who are in charge and who want this. And understand that this meets a need that they have. And, they've obviously done the work. This is the second time, and I think the last time you were here, we listened to this for about a half an hour also. And all their details and so forth, and we have to give a little bit of faith in people who are actually asking for it. That's it.
One more thing.
Yes,
I mean, I would think that they would be willing to let us maybe rent that until the new facility was built, if they knew we were gonna.
No, I know for sure they will. I know for sure they will. I mean, I'd love if we had 2 years of time to talk with you about doing a new facility, but literally LSS is asking me almost on a weekly basis, do you think this is gonna happen by the end of the year? And I said, I believe so, but I mean, obviously it's up to you guys as the county board to decide whether you're gonna be willing to buy it, because they know that, they want to get rid of the building and, they're not interested in being landlords. They want to end the relationship.
My last comment will be is it seems like these projects always come to us and there's always, they have to be done tomorrow. We don't, a year ago, like when you came to us with the Summit houses, you told us that they were in bad shape. They sold them and other people are using them, and we built a 16-bed crisis center. If you'd have came to us 2 years ago, we could have built just like we did with the 16-bed crisis center. But instead, we get like a month notice and we have to have this tomorrow. We have to close by the end of the year. You know, what we're getting an old dilapidated building for $1 million, and we could be building a new one for about the same price in a nice location. And Mike said that we could probably build a 5,000 square foot building for about the same price. This is $700,000, and just starting out, it's $300,000 on the maintenance. That isn't putting a chairlift in, that isn't doing anything else. That's the bare minimum to make it to our standards. So I, in good conscience, cannot vote for it.
You and I had a little discussion, when we had, the board meeting at lunch. Right, Bill?
Mhm.
And we talked about where that money's coming from. We talked about how large your budget is now, as you're rolling it over. And how we'd be digging $1 million out of the undesignated fund to do this.
Well, the motion reads that you can take it out of the general fund or bond for it. And the question that you asked me was about surpluses. And I don't have an exact number for you, but our surplus is probably going to be in the $3 million range.
And that gets turned back to the.
And that goes right back to the general fund on, well, actually, it currently exists in the general fund. We don't actually take it out unless we need it. So actually it exists today.
The bookkeeping comes back to.
The bookkeeping is all you back to the general fund in January.
This is what you were talking about at an earlier time with me. That they could buy it out of there. But,
You can't, because they have to turn the money back.
so we end up with it either way.
I'm just opposed to the old building in the poor location, that's all I'm opposed to. If it was a better location, I could live with the building. I can't live with the location, and that's just my opinion. And if I'm not gonna vote my conscience, then I shouldn't even be here. So if you are happy and you want to live with a railroad track in your front yard and a tavern in your backyard, vote for it.
I am,
You've got different standards than I do.
Let's not have a talk between, so, okay, go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Bender, but I think we gotta move forward and go on with it. I think there were a lot of them that it should have been done like what he's saying, but I'm gonna support it.
Don?
I got no more comments, but I'm voting yes.
So we've got 3 right off the bat there, so. Okay, we're gonna have to deliberate here. Everybody want to vote by name. We want you to give us a roll call.
Binder,
No,
Morris,
Yes,
Betsy? Yes. David,
yes.
Donald,
Yes.
okay,
4-1.
4-1.
Thank you.
Next item, agenda is item E, item 5. The approval of the capital project and the budget transfer in the amount of 180 for replacement of the Neenah Human Services Building air conditioning chiller units. I want to know something before we get into this, Mike. Why was this transfer just thrown together and no signatures whatsoever on it? Not one. Not your signature as the acting finance director, not John's signature as the exec, nothing. And the number is wrong. Sir. Answer, please.
I don't, just looking at the number, I don't know. What number is wrong? Well, it's inconsistent, at least,
It's 175 and the ask is 180. But I don't have any authorization on this transfer, nothing. And I don't feel that I should sign it if I don't have the exact sign and the signature on it. And that's the way it's gonna be from now on, sir. Telling that. I feel that we should be authorized to make a transfer.
The executive signs resolutions after the board passes them when he decides whether to exercise his veto. You won't make the transfer based on the resolution.
Then it should be
That's the
signed by
authority
the
for the
finance director at least, so we know where it's going.
I sign it when the approval has been granted by the county board.
That's not been the process before.
I agree with them, that has been the process before where it's been signed, yes.
Why have we been getting them signed all the time up to now?
I'm not arguing, I'm saying, yeah, that we're always signed, I thought,
You're saying they were all the same?
yes.
Yeah. But the transfer is wrong.
But that being said, I'll move to go ahead and do the transfer.
Second,
David, for clarification, you're approving 175,000, right?
Yes.
Well, the draft resolution says 180, that's the,
The question I've got is the budget transfer I've got says 180.
Where does it say on yours?
180.
Let me see that for you.
The resolution says 180, but this budget transfer that I gave everybody says 175.
That's correct.
And so my question to David was, he's just approving
Okay, I know, I
175.
will go with the 180, and then I think it's just a matter of this communication.
also in the resolution though, correct?
says 180.
Yeah, right here. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
it was just
typo,
probably-
So did you move for the 180?
Yes.
Okay, I think
You
it's
seconded.
We're
for the 180?
changing the budget transfer that I have in my hand to 180.
Yes, 180.
That was my error, and I'm sorry.
no, this, I was given 175.
You were,
This is what was given to me, emailed to me. I don't know where the 180 went to. I didn't get that.
Anyways, I moved to amend it to 180.
all right. Now we have a different move here.
And I second whatever Dave says.
They,
Partners
they
in
need
crime. Pardon me?
180 is what they need.
They need 180. We're changing the transfer to read 180. Okay. Now we'll just, on the resolution, Steve, would you make a motion on the resolution itself?
We already did that.
I read it, we did.
Okay. I thought you wanted to change that to a move on the.
I did, but before that, then you went to discussion and
Okay. My fault. All right, let's have a vote on it. We're voting on the resolution, right, the way it is.
I,
Okay. Okay, then,
you said I won, and it did, what's it? David, I.
5-0. On to item 6. Is renewal of the COVID hazard pay at Parkview. Hi. Can you? Well, I'll get into that. Or bring the resolution to the floor. Make a motion.
I moved to a resolution for the renewal of COVID hazard pay at Parkview Health Center.
Second.
Like to give us a little insight as to the changes that will be made to the current or the I believe it's a program that you're now currently running.
Yes, we currently have this program right now. It expires at the end of the year. So we wanted to renew this. However, instead of having a $10 an hour hazard pay to staff, that we would reduce it to $5 an hour. The previous resolution only included nursing staff, but nursing staff are not the only staff that go onto that COVID unit. We've got housekeeping and dietary staff that were not included into that hazard pay, and that still puts them at risk. We lowered the amount from $10 to $5 due to the less severity of COVID-19. When this was put in effect, it was more critical at that time.
So you're reducing the earlier program, which I'm holding here, the earlier program to $5
Correct.
rather than $10.
Right.
It'll be a savings if you know. It's not really a savings, but the projected cost, I believe, was annually 48,000 for the $10 program.
The predicted,
Yeah,
I cannot speak on that. I do not know.
anybody have any questions? Have any questions?
Oh, keep it for myself.
Don, you have any questions? That's it. Do we want to vote right now? All right.
Aye.
I,
Five votes.
I just have a comment.
Go ahead.
My wife and I both were very sick so, I mean, I supported it with COVID, and the city nurse came out by us and visited us. I'm sure they didn't get extra pay. Just a comment.
A city.
Just a comment. It's over.
Part of your program was to incentivize people to work at Parkview as well as to incentivize the people working at Parkview to stay working at Parkview. Is that not true?
Through the pandemic, through this resolution,
Yeah,
no, this was the one that was just passed. This was for people that were working on a designated COVID unit
Right.
where we had COVID positive residents, not to have them stay through the pandemic.
but it was an incentive to bring them into those units,
It was an incentive for them to work with higher risk patients,
right?
putting themselves at higher risk.
And without that, it will be harder to keep people working in those periods,
It would have been harder for people to agree to work on those units.
right? Okay. We voted that one. 5-0. I believe you have another one, which is the authorization of Parkview Health Center Emergency Staffing and Center proposal.
Correct, so this is a current resolution.
You want to read through that real quick? Give us a motion.
I move for resolution to authorize Parkview Health Center emergency stacking instead of closing.
Don? Thank you. You got a second? And a second?
Second,
Betsy, thank you. Discussion. Would you like to give us a little insight on this one?
So this is not a new resolution. This resolution has been passed already. However, we wanted to change the verbiage in this resolution. So some of the changes, would be, number two, the ability to offer exempt staff of $68 an hour for working above and beyond the required 40 hours per week, for emergency or high need shifts identified either by myself or the designee. The current resolution says $65 an hour for only nursing staff. We have 70 current nursing positions open. We need more than just the nurse managers to help work on the floor. We really need anybody, any salary person to be able to work on the floor. They're not able to flex their time because they still have their job that they have to do Monday through Friday. This would be above and beyond. But there's many other things that they can do on the floor to help the residents, because we are so short-staffed there.
Yeah. Yes, John.
So exempt staff are salary staff?
Salary staff. Mhm. Only salary staff. We do have some salaried staff that they're picking up shifts, but it's not above and beyond their 40. So, right, but this is just for people that would be coming and working above and beyond their 40 hours. So we do have some managers that are coming in on the weekends to work.
Does this offer anything else?
As far as changes goes?
Yeah.
So that's one change. The other change that we had was, number 3. Currently, it only identifies for double time for emergency or high need shifts if a nursing staff member is working their off weekend. So currently they work every other weekend. If it's on their weekend to work, there's no incentive for them to pick up. Because after 8 hours, they get time and a half. So if we can, we're trying to hodgepodge the schedule really. So if people can come in early for 4 hours, we want them to do that. If they can come in and stay later for 4 hours, we want them to do that. But they're already getting paid time and a half. There's no incentive for them to pick up on their weekend to work. So double time, even on their weekend to work, would help to just help puzzle piece the schedule better.
Okay.
I have a question for Mike.
Go ahead.
So does this mean that when we do this, there'll be other departments coming and asking for different incentives? I mean,
Other departments come ask us for other incentives already.
will
so-
they, I understand, but after we pass this now, it'll be more of a reason that they should.
Well, these aren't that fundamentally different from other incentives that have been offered at Parkview, and I think most people understand the emergency nature there. We just need to manage it as best we can. So I don't see this as having a major impact on them.
Go ahead.
I'll just say the highway department, their supervisors, knows on the weekend, they already got the 40 hours in. They'll be there all weekend supervising that workforce. And they don't get one extra dime for it. I'll support it because we need to get the resident base back up to full capacity. But we treat employees differently, and that's why I think we have such a hard feelings amongst employees. Because one staff is gonna come in the weekend and get $68 an hour, and the highway superintendent's gonna come in the weekend and get nothing. And then we say, well, we treat our employees fairly. I don't see a fairness in that. And he already has his 40 hours in because he basically worked all week. He can't help with that. It snowed all weekend. So he won't get a day off now until the following weekend. Then if it snows again, he won't get a day off then. So it's like, we have to treat our employees all the same. This is a different situation because you're 70 employees down. But in the future, we need to basically fill the staff that we're missing. We need to recruit some of the employees that
Personnel has a question.
retired, send them a letter, ask them if they're willing to come back part-time. You know, we have to do more to fill that nursing home.
Somebody from personnel would like to say something.
I just wanted to comment, the original or the resolution that's in place right now does speak to just the weekends, but they are finding it very difficult to staff the facility during the week at all, during the regular weekdays as well. So that was the reason for changing the wording. It's been very difficult.
Okay. You have something to say?
You wanna go first?
Well, I just want,
Hold on a second. I could call on that. But
Oh, just a quick question. Do you guys do temporary, for example, college students that come home for the weekend? Do you push those kids to? I'm just curious.
We do, yeah, and that's why weekends, it's not as difficult to fill as it is now during the weekdays, because we don't have the college kids, because they're at school during the week.
That's what I thought, because I know a lot of kids that would come in for the weekend. My daughter was one of them with Island Shores, and she would come in do the CNA position, but she couldn't come during the week, and I was just curious if that's affecting you guys at all. And I don't see this, I mean, you have to have a minimum staff for your residents. And you can't add people. This isn't to add people. This is just to compensate to keep what you have, if I'm not mistaken, for residency. Because if you don't have enough staff, then you have to literally, you can't have that many people. So what happens if your staff even goes down further? And I mean, do you have to kick residents out? Or how do you, I mean, I'm just curious because this is a care situation. This is,
Right.
you know, people who are on oxygen, who need help with changing their catheters and so forth, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, I don't think that we would probably look to kick people out. We consider this them their home, but we certainly wouldn't be taking new people in. And we have a waiting list of 35 people waiting to come to Parkview.
let's see, wouldn't you contract out to bring other nurses in if necessary?
We currently do contract out with agency workers. This would actually save us money, so we wouldn't have to use as much agency as we have in the building right now.
What is the agency hourly rate?
That's for you.
Traveling and stuff.
By comparison, just
Yeah, I'm curious too. That's a good question.
It ranges from a 68 to 73.50 an hour is what we contract with. And we do have some agency that we've been having to have work overtime. And those rates are 81.35 all the way up to 99.86 an hour.
yeah, so it makes sense to try to incentivize the people that you have there and not get into a contract issue.
Exactly.
Did you want to say anything?
yes, I just wanted to point out one discrepancy. Agenda item report says, for item 2, $68 an hour, but the resolution itself says 65, so is that meant to be, no, the resolution.
The current resolution is 65, the new one says 68.
Except
This
it doesn't.
Oh, geez.
So I think it's just an error on the
Yeah.
resolution.
The
that
agenda,
maybe we need to correct.
the agenda report,
The agenda report says 68.
I didn't read the agenda report. I'm working off of the resolution.
Okay,
The
Resolution
agenda
says
re-
65.
the agenda report is a secondary piece of literature, okay? Everything is coming from my resolution.
So do we have to amend the resolution?
Yes.
Yes, you'll be amending the resolution on line 17 to 68
And line 28 as well.
and line 28 to 68.
Who,
Pardon? What's it?
how does that work then? So the motion, I seconded. So they have to.
I'll get to that, okay? So now we are amending the motion that, of the resolution. So line 17 reads 68, and line 28 reads $68 per hour. We're gonna have to vote on the amendment.
We have to second the amendment.
Second the amendment. You wanna make the amendment to change the lines.
I'll make the
17.
amendment to authorize Parkview Health Center emergency staffing incentive to $68 an hour
On both lines
on
17.
both line 17 and 28.
And the second came from Dave. Okay. Now we're back to the original resolution,
Do we have to vote on the amendment?
but we will, yeah, we should, yeah. To get that.
Aye.
clear.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, so it's 5, I will. Now we're voting on the resolution.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
5-0 on the resolution. Okay. On the resolution, that was the amendment, that was amended. So we're all clear on that. Lindsay. Yeah, both of yours. Both voted all. Voted them, yeah, you're all good.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're on item 8, the ordinance amendment. The Winnebago County General Code, chapter 19, exhibit 80. the Sunnyview Exposition Plan. This is Rick Helms. And Adam, how are you doing?
Wonderful.
That's good. Okay. And you'd like to,
I move for an ordinance to amend the Winnebago County General Code, Chapter 19, Exhibit A, Sunnyview Exposition Center rental fee schedule. To add the utility fees for 2023, 2024, 2025. Make 2 additional changes to equipment rental fees and camping area description.
Second.
and here, Betsy is the second. Okay, do we have discussion? Do you wanna?
I'm gonna turn it over to, I will actually be on vacation when this is presented to the board. Rick Helms, our expo manager, if you haven't met him yet, put together most of this data, and really he put together all the data. So just really the background is that, we have our fees in, chapter 19 for, through 2025 in the Sunnyview Expo. I can't speak to it why, but for some reason we didn't have the 2023 through 2025 utility fees, defined. So we've been working on that this year. Rick's been working on getting those updated to be more equitable, and then to reflect what we're seeing from our utility rates coming in from this year and next year. Otherwise, I will. The easiest thing to look at, because obviously there's a lot of information that's being changed, is I had sent over a red line, the ordinance, chapter 19, that has it all in red. So you can see very specifically on page 3 of our fee chart, those red items. There is one on page 2 that's just the description change because we built lot 3 for camping. So that's a very minor change, but page 3 will have all the changes. I'll let Rick explain those fee changes.
All right, so as Adam said, we didn't have any utility rates determined for 23 through 25. So that was just something that we kind of started going back, looking at the history to see what our usage was for the expo center, different parts of the property. There's a lot of different meters that we have, so was able to drill down and really see what some of the expenses actually were. And then looking at the requests from WPS for next year stating they're asking for an 8% increase. Traditionally, from 1960 to 2020, the average increase was about, I think it was like 2.8% across Wisconsin for average utility rates. And we typically went up around 3%. So what I did was just kind of look at our expenses, added 8% onto there for 2023 and set those rates for 24 and 25. I did go back to a 3% increase with the caveat that if we were to see another major increase from WPS and our actual expenses, that we could come back and, you know, raise it proportionally to match that. We're only gaining 2% or so above and beyond our actual expenses, just to kind of incur for any, you know, repairs or upgrades that might be necessary. But the other big change was that typically in the past, there was one rate, no matter what you were renting in the expo facility or the grounds. It was, this past year was $300 if you rented the small wing of the expo building, if you rented the entire building, or if you were putting on a horse show. It was $300 regardless of how much space you were renting, which I didn't think was fair to some of our smaller clients. So the one thing I did there was kind of divided the expo building into 3 sections, the center hall and each of the wings, which is mimics the rental areas, and then kind of divided the entire building equally there as well. So we're able to set a smaller fee if you're renting just the south wing with 40, 50 people in it, to, you know, make that proportional to what you're actually using. The building has the ability to adjust the heat and AC to those areas. So it's not like we're still cooling the entire building without somebody in it. We're able to kind of bring that down. You know, so we're not really expending as much when it's not being used. So I thought that was fair. You know, to our clientele, still covering our expenses as we need them. As Adam said, there were a couple other small changes in wording because of some of the recent construction we had, and a couple other small things with stage rental. You know, we had a new stage component, so we had to change that description because the sizing was different. The other thing that we changed was bleacher rental. We just changed that to include the moving fee instead of having a 3-unit minimum, and then just make it simpler and easier. So we're more covering our expenses when we're utilizing that stuff as well.
Any other input we got? Nothing? Any discussion from board?
Comment.
Go ahead.
Let's thank Rick for doing a good job. I think it was time that we updated it, and thanks for taking care of it for us. Well,
Don, Bessie?
Great job. You put a lot of effort in this, just like what Bender said. Supervisor Bender.
Thanks. Okay. So let's vote.
Aye.
I,
5-0. Item 9, adopting revisions for Winnebago County compensation schedule. That would be Mike. Or Mark, sorry about that. No. Everybody get a copy of the compensation schedule with them. Like that. So lead information.
Sure. So included in the budget that you just passed was the average labor increase of 4%. And as explained, that doesn't necessarily directly result in a 4% increase to every employee.
but rather, that's the budgeted amount, those who are closer to the state wage. Based on merit and shares may get more, those towards the upper end may get less. But each year, we also review the compensation schedule as a whole. And based on that 4% average raise, we're proposing moving the compensation schedule up 3%. The reason for the difference is that allows people who are hired to move up within the grade. If we raise the compensation schedule 4%, you run the risk of people that are already at the starting pay stay at the starting pay, and then the new person that we hire starts at the same rate. So that's why there is a difference. Over the past 6 years, we've done a 6% increase, so an average of 1% per year. Obviously, we've got a different labor market, and recruiting is important for all our departments. So this is completely separate than any recommendations that will come through from the compensation study. By bringing this to this committee in November, instead of a lot of times it's brought in December. December's board meeting would give us 5 working days to try to get this implemented by January 1st. And for payroll staff to get all those changes in the system implemented. It's just too short of a turnaround. If we brought it forward in December, we'd have to probably look at a later start date than January 1st. And since, again, payroll is working on merit increases, it provides an efficiency to do all these increases all at once, instead of having to have them be touching every employee's wage multiple times. So that's why it's coming to you in November.
Yes, Dave.
I have a question. My question is, what direction will you be giving them to go, or will the executive be telling them to go for 4%, 3%?
Yeah, we haven't put a motion on the floor to accept it. We want, yes, I understand that. We want to have a discussion after the motion.
I'd like to move to approve
Approve.
the adopting of the revisions of the Winnebago County compensation schedule for 2023.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Bender, second. Now we can go ahead with that discussion.
Well, some time ago, I was at a conference, and one of the consultants were there, and I said, well, I would never go along with you again because you did such and such. He said, but that wasn't direction that I was told to go. My question to you is, what direction do you feel they're going to be giving him to go for the compensation study? Like, for example, telling him to go with 3.5%, 6%, 2%. Will that be you telling them, Mike telling them, or the executives telling them?
The intent is that, first of all, we take a look at the actual data and go off of what the data tells us. So from that standpoint, I think we need to see what the market rate is. I mean, whether it's any one of us picking a number, we've got to justify that number somehow. And I think the way we justify that, as far as where we should be, it's in relation to the market. Then the secondary discussion is, what does that cost come to? And what options do we have to fund whatever the recommendations are? So I think we've got to base any recommendations on results of market data. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
I'll leave it at that.
okay.
Don? That's it. How is this study truly going to affect after you've made changes to the center of each one of the job descriptions? I'm talking about the center, I guess it's the base we raised the level of the center of that job description. Is that correct? Agreed?
You mean the control point?
The control point.
Mhm.
No. How does the master study or the wage study, we'll look at that. Similar question is, how does a wage study coming, first it should have been done earlier. I mentioned that before. We thought it was gonna be done before the budget, so we could implement it with the budget in some way or another. So this is going to add to the wage studies increases at a later time, right?
Well, not necessarily. I mean,
Or is it just going to give them more information as to the direction they're going, and then they're going to up theirs or lower it comparatively to what you put out there?
yes. Because if I'll just pick, let me just, I'm gonna pull a number and just make one up. Let's say the consultant were to come back and say, we needed to increase wages 6%. This, if it was 6% based off on the 2022 compensation schedule, well, then this raise and what's been in the budget takes care of 3% of that. You know, I mean, they're not completely independent of each other. So what this does is by doing what we do every year and adjusting this now, the new positions, for instance, that were authorized, like called shelter care positions, we'll be able to actually advertise those with 2023 rates. So it's gonna help us on recruitment, things like that. It doesn't, it doesn't really impact the final result of what the consultant does, because any of these increases will be in effect. So if, for instance, the control point is $15 in the 2022 compensation plan, and this, let's say, were to raise it to 16, and let's say consultant recommends it goes to 20, well, we've already at least made some progress towards 20. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, it was a 5% recommendation, so we need to, or a $5 recommendation, so now we need to make it 21. You know, it really, I think, also helps clarify what the consultant's recommendations are versus what the budgetary process was already planned for is. Because the budget, we already planned for, you know, that 4% increase, that's baked in the budget. And then instead of trying to come to the board and say, well, in the budget, we planned this. And so really say a recommendation of using that same 6% number. You know, 4% was already in the budget. She's recommending 6, so really it's a 2% increase. I think some of that gets a little bit, there's a potential for some confusion where if we say this is what the budget piece of it was and gets approved, and then we have a completely separate, here's what the consultant's recommending. I think that keeps the two a little bit more clear of what's actually the market, where we're at and where we need to go.
I like that way of thinking. I'm glad we get you on tape. And you show us that when the wage increases or the wage study is over with, and we, we'll end up probably asking, or you probably come back and ask us to make a total move on all of the wages at that time, will you not?
I would assume so.
Yeah. Okay, let's get a vote on this. Yes,
Do you have the percentages of what our employees are, like how many percent are in A, B, C, and D? I mean, we have 1,000 employees, what's the percent? How many of them are in A, how many are in B? Do we ever get anybody in the D category? I mean, I think it's very few that ever make it that far.
I can't tell you right now, but I can tell you, you know, with only 15 minutes work, how many how many in each category we have, currently. I mean, we have a spreadsheet to list them all and has their categories, it's just a matter of sorting and adding them to columns.
Just email it to me or give it to me at the next county board meeting. I'm just curious. I don't know, in the highway department, hardly any of that ever made it to the D because your shares drop off, you know, to 4 shares when you get to a certain pay grade and you never get to 7 shares, so.
Yeah, the focus is on getting people to the control point in, 5 to 8 years.
Right,
They're good
but when we used to have
employees.
it where we had the step raises, in 8 years, everybody made the same amount of money. You did the same job, you got the same pay. And now that it's different than that, and I'm not so sure this was ever the way to go.
That was the decision of the board at that time.
100% correct.
I guess I don't understand what you mean that this was the way to go or what.
Well, when I started at the highway department or at the airport, I started at the A level. After 18 months, I got evaluated. And if I was at the next level, they thought I learned enough, then they put me to the next step. I would have went to the B step. And if I didn't, they would say, well, we're gonna give you 3 more months. This is what you need to work on. But eventually they would promote me to the B level. And then it'd be another 18 months. And then they would basically evaluate me again. And they would say, yes, Steve, you're really catching on. You're working good with your coworkers. We're gonna put you to the next level. Then it'd be another 18 months and they'd evaluate me again. And they'd say, you really gotta improve on this. You're not ready to be at the D level yet, but if you can make this, and this, we'll call you in again in 3 months and we'll let you know. Some people may never get to the D level. They don't have the mindset or the skill level. But you knew every 18 months you were gonna get a pay increase if you performed your job and did it adequately. Right now, it's like the highway department, the supervisors hardly ever see them. They give them a job in the morning, they got 54 guys on the road. And like I asked Mike, if they never get disciplined all year, they never get told they should improve on this, why wouldn't every one of them get the maximum shares? But when you get to a certain pay, you can only get 4 shares, but a new employee can get 7 shares. So it just makes it harder for the new employee. They get a little more upfront, but when you get to be in the longevity of the employee, it's hard to, like we say, we give a 4% raise, but somebody that's at the control point is probably only gonna get 3 or 4 shares. They're not gonna get a 4% raise, they're probably gonna get a 2% raise. And I'm on Social Security, I'm gonna get 8.7% raise. It's just, to me, it's not fair.
Mike, when you make a copy for Steve, make a copy for all of us. Okay?
Sure.
So we see it. Thank you.
Is it okay if I just email everyone? Is that all right? with everyone? I'll just-
That's fine. Just refer to it and let us know. Thank you. We want to vote on this? Okay.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Okay, we're on item 10. Thank you, Mark. Review third quarter investment report for 2022.
This will include the quarterly investment report for your review. Dealing with investment of county funds that are currently surplus. It includes, of course, not just the unassigned general fund, but all the county funds. We do a combined investment program and just account for them with the average rate of return for the group.
You find this fun reading?
Pardon?
You find this interesting reading and where you can barely read the.
Yeah, I know that's very difficult to read.
How can we do that better?
on your iPad,
Excuse me,
on your iPad, you can make it
I
bigger.
didn't recommend that for an answer.
Last time we got this, remember I asked for 11 by. What is it? 11 by 17 or whatever. That was,
Yeah. Or more pages and less, crowded.
All right.
If we're gonna
We
put
just-
it on if you're gonna put it on a report, please let us be able to read it. And it's on the iPad, just to entertain that thought. Some of us don't read well on the refreshes on an iPad, okay? Number of times it turns over. I don't. I've got an eye problem. Okay, so I like to read it solidly. If you can do this a little better on the printing of this, it really helps.
We'll find a better way to present
Thank
that
you.
in the future. I apologize.
I think 1117 would, should be more on paper, but we could read it.
Please don't send it to me. I'm good with it.
Comes out of our tracker program that way, but we can manipulate it.
Yeah.
So we can come up with a better format.
Either a little better format or a little larger print. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Well, just very briefly, some highlights are that the quarterly average return ending September was 2.11%. That compares with a year ago at 1.16%. So obviously reflecting the increase in interest rates because we are constrained to an extremely narrow range of investments, extremely low risk investments. Of course, we're not going to get the kind of interest rates that almost any other investor would achieve in today's market, but we do invest primarily in government bonds and money market and certificate of deposit. We have moved a little bit more toward the municipal bonds because they're a little bit better interest rate now than CDs. CDs have flagged the increase compared to some of the bonds. Other than the municipal bonds, we invest largely in federally insured bonds, some of the federal programs, you know, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and so forth. There is a local government investment pool you'll see on there, which is a Wisconsin fund set up specifically for local governments in Wisconsin. Their interest rates have not been favorable, so we've got almost no money there. We do have a little bit of corporate bonds. Those are extremely high, or low risk, high value corporate bonds with relatively lower rates of returns as well. We have about 6% invested in that right now. So, if you have any questions, or certainly be glad to address them.
I'm looking for the Spirit Fund.
Spirit Fund is in a money market fund, so this doesn't separate out the funds. It just, you know, the governmental types of funds. It just separates out the types of investments as a pooled investment. So the ARPA funds are all in the money market funds.
Are they in one bank in the money market funds, or are they in several banks?
Well, they're all in the associated bank money market fund, a separate money market fund set up with Associated Bank.
Is that because they gave the best interest, or is that? I thought some time ago we were gonna, but years ago, maybe before your time, we were gonna invest all the money with, so split it up between the local banks.
Generally, our investments are quite broadly split among local banks and different brokerages. So if you see, you know, if you look on page 10, for instance, you know, those are all different brokerages or banks that we invest through. And you can see there's a pretty good list of them. It's not just one or two, it's just with the money market. We have to be careful with money markets because you have to be either government insured or with sufficient, it has to be securitized essentially. There has to be security. They have to have, you know, funds that they can say, we have this on account, we, you know, aren't going to lose it. So most money market funds will only let us put in, you know, 3 million or something like that on an insured, federally insured or securitized basis. So there's only a couple that let us put larger amounts.
If the average person went to the bank and the bank failed, they'd only received about $250,000 back in insured funds. Should the bank fail. I don't know how you, unless you have different accounts within the bank. We're talking about one large lump sum, $33 million. I don't see that in here unless
Supervisor Allen, you have a question?
go ahead.
I remember being on, when I was on the PNF committee for the Neenah Joint School District for 12 years.
Mhm.
And I was schooled very well on public and how you do this. And I remember, and I'm assuming, and I'm gonna refer back to what my knowledge is, to what you guys do. But I was assuming that, because we had to have such specific, public, monies of accounts of, and we were limited on where we could put our monies. And I'm assuming that because this is a public entity also, that, you guys are kind of under the same, boundaries also. Am I?
Essentially, yes, we are. There's
Yeah.
statute here, here
Right,
brought it along, so the statute on public deposits, so
Yeah.
that would be the same statute. We also have our own county investment policy, which is a little bit even more restrictive in
Mhm.
terms of the different banks and so forth we go to, so we don't go to banks that are, 2 states away or something like that.
Absolutely. And also I'd like to add that, thank you for, because I am not a finance person in general. And I would like to say thank you for the definitions and everything that I could refer back to, because I mean, that was really nice and it helped getting through these documents. So thank you.
Very welcome.
I've got a question too. Like on our bonds, we got 2% bonds, and basically, if you were to sell them, you'd have to sell them at a discount. Do we take the discount in account? Like West Point Bank has $10 million in treasury bonds, they want them at 2%. Right now, the treasury bonds paying 4%. They have to mark that loss down at the loss, because if they need to sell them bonds, they can't get their money back. They're gonna sell at a discount, because nobody's gonna buy your 2% bond when they get a 4% bond. Are we accounting for that in our?
Yes, at the end of the year, every year we do a mark-to-market adjustment to reflect the value of the bonds, compared to the face value. Now, we almost always hold the maturity, so we never actually realize those profits or losses, but we do account for them.
Yeah, I know, like my wife, I got $250,000 in the bond market, and she lost about $68,000. So they do fluctuate greatly.
And we don't do any bonding more than 7 years out, so we schedule them, we ladder them, we keep track of how many are maturing at what time, so that we always have some maturing. And we pretty much always keep them maturing.
And then you don't lose the money. And if you get into a case where you have to have them, they sell at a substantial discount.
Right.
Do you have anything more to add to the quarterly report?
No.
Okay. We want to just approve it as a, general sort of vote of confidence, so. We approve. He doesn't need a vote, we don't. I'm not gonna vote it. Thank you. We have 2 resolutions, one of Matt Brown and the other Matt Yampski of commendation.
Second.
On both of them, right? Okay. We have 2 claims that need to be disallowed for the insurance.
We got a
company.
vote.
Excuse me?
We have to vote for those commendations.
Excuse me. Vote for the motion for the resolution of Matt Brown.
I,
Aye. That's 5-0, and of Matt Gamsky.
I,
Aye. That's 5-0. We have two claims here. One of Joel Lupke. I'm sorry, yes, Joel Lupke, and the other of Joe, no, both of them are Joel.
No, it
No.
went to Joel.
I'm sorry, this is a claim for Sherry Yampsky. And a claim for Heidi Green. Let's go with the first one. Do we have a motion on it?
Second.
Disallow. Okay. Have a vote on it? To disallow.
Aye.
Aye. It's 501. The second one is on Heidi Greenfield. And we have a motion on that, please.
Second.
That's it. Thank you. We have a vote, please.
David,
Aye.
Aye. The 5-0. Next step, we need to set the meeting date.
December 1st. The Thursday.
For adjournment.
Second.
That's it. Thank you.
yeah, you know, I did have to take my,
All in
our
favor?
grandma's
Aye.
magnifying glass to read that